Good morning and welcome to another session of GM Tips. This is GM Rick here. I hope you're doing great on this new year, and we're a little cold here. We're going to get our first snow. Can you believe it? Snow in Texas. Go figure. But we do get it from time to time. So you'll hear in the background Minnie GM. She's watching the Great Clam Race, Iron Clam Race. So that's rocking us. So this morning I wanted to focus on playing Pathfinder. For those of you in my D&D world and the other places around from 5e, 4e, and various other gaming systems that have never played Pathfinder. A lot of people say it's daunting, it's a lot of rules-heavy play, and it's not easy and it's cumbersome. And some people have had that experience. However, if you ever play in my games, I'm a very skill-based, have fun, try to role-play GM. And I believe that if you have the right understanding on how to create a character, if you have the right understanding on what to do and what it's going to take to create a character, you will do fine with the system. The system isn't that much more cumbersome than any other system you're going to use. A lot of it is choices. You have a ton of choices. Now, I hear all of you guys in 5e all the time say, man, I love the system, however, my choices are limited. And people convert, and guess where they convert from? The majority of it comes from Pathfinder, because Pathfinder does two things really well that every other system out there, with a few exceptions in the D20 world, don't do, and that's give you archetypes. What is an archetype? An archetype basically is a class where the class has been specifically modified to make a certain type of character. Say a smuggler, a pirate, a cut purse, a cat burglar, a spell slinger. There are a lot of different things that can be done in Pathfinder that you cannot easily do in other systems. It just doesn't allow for it because they don't have the proper skills there, they don't have the proper feats, and by the simplification of the game for others to play, it has limited your choices. So, even though you may love 5e and you may love some of the other systems, after a while what I find is players often get bored of their choices. There's a lot of, I'm going to play the same old, same old. There's a handful of choices that you have. Now, thankfully, there are some DMs out there that have done some third-party material for you guys. But really, archetypes are something that are more situated to Pathfinder and its system. Now, don't be overwhelmed by the archetypes. It tells you in the descriptions what you swap out for what. So it's a really simplified thing, and if you know what to swap out for what, you'll be fine in creating your characters. The other thing that it will allow you to do is prestige classes. And you remember, those of you that have played 3.0 and 3.5, D&D 3.0 and 3.5, prestige classes were something everybody loved. Because what it said is, I start out as this base class. So you start out as a rogue, a fighter, a ranger, a cavalier, a warlock for D&D 5e. You start out as a sorcerer or something along those lines, and then from there, if you have the right prerequisites and the skill sets that you have and feats, you can become an archetype. Or not, excuse me, not an archetype. Going back. A prestige class. So you could pick this prestigious class out to go into that gave you additional abilities stacked onto your level of what you already have in a wizard, a rogue, a warlock, a sorcerer, a bard. You had that ability to do that. That is something else that Pathfinder started out really strong with and is going to be going back to that this year. One of the things they've discussed is adding much more prestige classes into the system. So your choices are so broad and diverse that even though you play a class, you will never play the same character twice if you don't want to. And that's the really cool part about Pathfinder, is for the GM and for the player, is that you can literally play almost any type of fantasy character your imagination can think of, if there's an archetype for it, and if there's a prestige class. So you can become a member of the Aspis Consortium on the Inner Sea world, Valerian. You can become a smuggler. You can become a guild master of a rogues guild. You can become a spy. You can become a skirmisher. You can become a weapons master. You can become all these different things. A hunter, a tracker, an urban. A lot of people love the urban rangers because those are the rangers that are set in a city setting, and that's their urban jungle. So there's so much you can do that it really is worth your time to check out Pathfinder. It really is. So let's start with the basics here a little bit. Creating a character. You can create a character fairly easily. You either do the standard 46 and take the best of the 3 rolls if you want to do it that way. Or if a GM worries about characters creating that way, there's another way you can do it. And it comes from the Pathfinder Society. And it's called a point buy. And the point buy is on this table right here. Oops. Let's see if I can get that set. There we go. And what you do is it costs you certain points to get your stat score up to a certain level. So let's look at it. Say you want to play a high fantasy game and you give your players 20 points to buy their stats with. Okay? So there's 20 points. The base scores for every character start out at 10. So all your players, you start at 10. And then you buy from there. So say you want a 16 strength. Of your 20 points, you take 10 of those points and pump it into one of those abilities. That leaves you 10 left that you can spread out. And you're like, oh my gosh, well, what does that give me? Well, you can put everything else at 12 if you want to, because it's 2 points. And you got 5 other stats. So 16 in one stat, 12s in the other. Not a bad start. It really isn't. And honestly, it's pretty fair. 10 is considered average. 12 is above average. It's not a bad thing. It does limit your players, and it severely does. You're not going to have a player with 3 18s in their score. And some of you players are going to go, oh my gosh, why not? Because they don't want you to be uber powerful. They want a little challenge to add to you. The goal is not for us to kill you off as a GM. Please keep that in mind, players. We're not here to kill you. That's not our goal. It's not us versus you. It's simply, how do we make a game challenging for you? Now, here's something else you can do. You can take a score from 10 all the way down to 7 if you choose to. So if you want to be a little weaker, say, on your wisdom and not really be wise at all, you can gain 4 points. Taking it to 7 will give you 4 points more to play with. Taking it to 8 gives you 2 more points. Taking it to 9 gives you 1 more point. So there are ways you can mix and match your points. So you may have a character with an 18 in one stat, but a 7 in another. And that's okay. What that says is I excel in this area and I'm uber powerful here. But here I'm not so powerful. And it's pretty cool. I had a rogue do that. And he put his deal at 8. And boy, it was fun because he was really good in his dex and he could do a lot of things. However, not so good in his wisdom. And he got mind controlled a few times, which was fun for the play in the party. They enjoyed themselves a little bit. So you do that. Now, where do you go from there? You can pick your races. Now, the nice thing about Pathfinder, we've got so many races to choose from. Okay? Again, other systems, they may give you 7 to 9 races to play with. So everybody plays a tiefling or tiefling, however you want to pronounce it. An Azamar. You know, they're limited. You can play Drow in a Pathfinder campaign. You can play a goblin. You can play a hobgoblin. You can play an orc. You can play a rat folk. So, if you want to have your Star-Lord and your little raccoon guy, yeah, you can play him because you're just a rat folk. You can play Samsaran, which are the spirit folk. You can play you love your fox folk, you can play them. You can play Grippleys. You can play Lizardmen. You can play a lot of different uncommon and common classes. There's even one that one of our players played that's one of the Beetlemen. And what the Beetlemen, they were raised up by the Drow as slaves, but some of them break free. So it's basically your Umber Hulk without the eye abilities, okay? And so these super strong beetle folk, can be played, have multiple arms. You can do a lot of different things. You can play a damn fear. So I have vampire, so you're Blade kind of character. You can do a lot of different things, and they give you the stats for them. And the other cool thing, so say you want to pick a run-of-the-mill character, so you pick an elf, and you've got its standard traits. The other thing Pathfinder does for you is it gives you more traits to work with. So you can take your elf, and you can add and subtract traits for different other traits. So you can modify your elves so they're not all the same standard stock elf. Whereas in D&D and some of the others, you're stuck with that standard stock elf, pretty much, and their ability scores. So you get a +2 dex, +2 intelligence, right? And maybe a minus on con. You can modify those in Pathfinder in some cases, depending on the type of elf you pick, or the type of dwarf, or the type of gnome. They allow the gnomes to have different spell-like abilities to start out. So you maybe want to be a gnome linguist or a gnome tinker, and you get different starting spell traits. So there's a lot of coolness you can do with the traits. And then they also have trait books. So this is where people get a little overwhelmed, but they've compiled these in areas you can find them in the SRD or the PRD material. And that's the other thing that Pathfinder does. You do not have to buy all the books. I recommend buying the core rule book and then adding little by little as you want to add. Most of that material is on the SRD or PRD free. Pathfinder wants you to play because they know you're going to buy more of their material if you play. And they realize some of the campaign material and the gazetteers and that gets overwhelming. So they're all going to put a lot of that into one location. Hero Lab has all that. So all you have to do is the Hero Lab add-ons. Generally, they're only $4.99. Thanks, bud. So they're only $4.99. They're not a lot for you to add on to Hero Lab to build them up. And Hero Lab does all the calculation work for you. So for $20 for Hero Lab, and everybody gripes about that, I wouldn't gripe about it. I've had Hero Lab for over 2 years, and let me tell you something. I live and die by it as a GM. They have the add-in material. It's not expensive. The core books are $9, with the exception of like the Inner Sea stuff, the Realm Guide stuff, and the modules, and the Adventure Pass. Those are a little more expensive. Well, modules aren't, but Adventure Pass are. So it allows you to work with that and to build your characters up fairly easily. And you can tell it whether you want to do a fantasy point buy, what kind of point buy, or you want to do rolls. And it lets you do it from the very beginning. It lets you keep. It has a journal in it that keeps track of your characters' ups and downs. You can put in adventure material in those things. You can put in XP and gold earn. It keeps track of everything for you. So again, a lot of you go, well, you're making a great promo for Hero Lab. No, I just am a believer in make your game simple by using tools where possible. So everybody's worried about all this cost of the game. Don't worry about that. Even the GM has the books if you need them. Most cases. Or we can get them. I mean, PDFs are very inexpensive, and a PDF subscription is very inexpensive. So just keep that in mind as you look at these things. Don't sit there and freak out about all the different things that you think are going to be hard for you, because I'm going to tell you as a yes, bug. Okay, I will try to find it. So you want to just really try to look at this as it allows you a lot of diversification. Equipment's real easy. They give you a lot of swords and weapons options. That's the other thing I love about it. You have so many different weapons from so many different cultures. You want a katana? They have a katana. You want different black powder firearms? They have them already set out for you. The great thing about all this is that Paizo has really made it easy to customize your game. And that's where you've got to look at it. People get mad at Paizo. They say, oh, you're in it for this and that. Stop. You've got to understand why they did what they did. They did this because they want you, the player, and you, the GM, to have unique games every time. That one? Okay, the Undersea Turtles. Hang with me a second. This one right here, Bug? Okay. So don't take it in a negative light. You got to look at the game very differently than you do. If you want simplicity and repetitiveness and simplicity for a GM to learn GMing, okay, then start with 5e. I have nothing against 5e. I'm a former D&D guy that started out. Pathfinder will give you diversity, and that's really at the bottom line. Now, Open Legends starting to help that a little more and do some simplification. So Open Legends is another good system, but we're on Paizo right now. So classes, you've got so many class choices. Alchemists, Cavaliers, Witches, Sorcerers, Summoners. You've got Occult for your psychic magic. You have Vigilantes, which I love the Vigilante. So you can start out a class and have the Vigilante as your alter ego. So literally, you're Bruce Wayne. So you want to play your superhero type of characters or supervillains, there you go, right there, with the Vigilante. Because they have the strong and the smart. So really, you play whatever way you want to play with it. And you also have the Cthulhu aspect mixed in. So they have sanity rules. They have the Cthulhu mythos. So for those of you that love Call of Cthulhu but always wanted to play it in a fantasy setting and have more of the fantasy diversity, this is where Pathfinder makes sense. Strange Aeons is devoted to that type of thing. Part of the Carrion Crown is devoted to a Cthulhu-esque type of setting. So you can run these type of things. They got several modules. Several of the Pathfinder folks are huge Cthulhu fans, so that's part of the reason for it. They work with Chaosium. They've been able to import the material over with no problem with doing the licensing things, and they've kept it within its consistency. Not a lot of other systems can boast of that. That's why D&D doesn't boast of it right now, because Wizards hasn't done that. So you have to do your own conversion. Strahd is about the closest you get to it. Horror campaigns, they're a dime a dozen in Pathfinder. I mean, you can find whatever you want to find. They have whole realms devoted to it. And that's why I love the Inner Sea Guide. Now, you can do Midgard if you don't like Inner Sea. Midgard's a very rich system that gives you that ability too. So Kobold Press has put that out. Purple Duck has their own one too. So if you look at all the third-party material that's available to Pathfinder, a ton. To 3.5, some. So again, just keep in mind, these are the differences, and that's why I go through them a little bit with you so you understand. It's no knock. Look, if you like a system, you like a system. I'm not telling you throw it away and move away. That is the last thing I'm telling you. If you like 5e, keep 5e and add Pathfinder in, okay, as another alternative when you get tired of 5e. And then when you get tired of Pathfinder, go back to 5e. It's real easy. It allows you to do the transition. There aren't that many books in 5e that you have to buy. So, real easy to make the transition over. Really, you need the core rulebook. The books I'd recommend: core rulebook, Advanced Player's Guide. Okay, those two are musts. Then it depends. Do you want class blends? If you like class blends, then the Advanced Class Guide. If you want to unchain your rogue and your monk and your barbarian and be able to do some different rules with them, then the Pathfinder Unchained. It allows you to simplify and customize, so that you understand their abilities a lot easier. If you want to do more of a martial type of campaign with ninjas and samurai and gunslingers, then the Ultimate Combat. If you want to do the Magus, which is the spell-casting swords person or weapons person, then you do the Ultimate Magic. It tells you about spell blights, it tells you about different rules, and it gives you new spells. Spell combat, it goes into wizard on wizard or wizard on sorcerer or, whatever arcane class on arcane class against each other. If you want more of the occult realms and chakras and dealing with the spirit world and psychic magic, then the Occult Adventures. If you want more social combat so that you're not always just doing physical combat and you get experience points for resolving things socially, the Ultimate Intrigue works for that. And it also gives you the Vigilante class. So you mix and match how you want to mix and match as a player. And you take on only what you have to. Don't try to keep up with the Joneses. Add little by little. Decide where you want to go next and then add it to your collection. Too many people buy every book that comes out in hardcover. That's me, okay? You don't have to. buy them as you want to play them. That's the whole point. Or try it out with the PRD and the SRD and see if you like enough of the classes in there and the abilities and the feats that you want to buy that. Okay? So, in building a character, pick how you want to roll them and build them. Pick the race. Okay? If you do, once you get the race done, you get to pick 2 traits for starting traits. Usually either a combat, a social, a divine, or a spellcasting one, along with a regional or another additional one from your race. So you can do 2 starting traits. And if you want to take a penalty and a hindrance, so some sort of a quirk in your character, you can take 3. And they give you some extra little pluses here and there. So it's really cool. Or some access to some skills as a trained skill that you normally don't get. You put your points into your skills. Think about what's most important to you. Do you want to be a social combatter? Do you want to be a skill person, which is real dexterous? Do you want to be a swimmer, climber, jumper type of athlete? Do you want to be a perceptive person that picks up on things and is real, senses things and perceives things? Or a linguist that has lots of languages? You can do that with skills. It's really cool how you can do that. You pick you use your money, you buy your starting stuff. They even have kits. So with the ultimate equipment, and here's a promo for the ultimate equipment. The ultimate equipment gives you access to almost every type of magic item and common item available. It's a compilation. And they have kits. So if you want a fighter's kit to start, kind of like what D&D did. Here's your kit. Pick your kit. It has all these items in it. Makes it real simple. Pathfinder did the same thing, just to make sure that you had an ease to access with that. Pick your alignments, pick your region you're from, and you're ready to go. And honestly, that's as simple as it gets, folks. Playing them, it's fairly straightforward. You just figure out what skills are needed and what skill rolls. Everything's a DC challenge, so it's a dice challenge, DC rated. So it's same as D&D. You roll against the DCs to achieve what you're going to do. So again, it's fairly straightforward. Feats just give you got to know how things stack. And if you got questions, you go out to the site. People are more than happy to help you on the Pathfinder community sites. And that's another thing that's really strong versus some of the stuff at maybe Wizards, is the Paizo community. They're real helpful. And even the Pathfinder creators will hop on and talk with you often and give you advice. So keep in mind, they're very accessible and they're very helpful when it comes to wanting you to understand. So that's it. It's a pretty straightforward overview. I wanted you guys to know in about 24 minutes how easy it is to play Pathfinder. It is not this mountain climbing exercise that so many people who have left the system make it out to be. Okay? Don't believe all the negativity. There's a lot of people who are bitter because Paizo took the route of doing a campaign guide, doing a player guide, doing a adventure path and adventures setting, and then 4 books. And that's why people got mad, because they said it's book heavy. No, it's not. It's book heavy only when you want to get everything. You don't have to. Little by little. Add little by little to your collection. And it makes it simple. It really does. So, for those of you wanting to try it, if you've got any questions, hit me up at Rick M the GM on Twitter, or Rick the GM on Facebook. Look me up either way without a K. Don't use a K. It's RIC. And you'll find me. Thanks again, and have a great week of gaming.